skate down to Prospect Avenue. Get info you require. Oh, we're gonna skate down to Prospect Avenue, your hockey news supplier.
All right, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of the world famous Prospect Avenue podcast, your definitive source for everything Buffalo Sabres prospects. I'm your host, Chris Baker, here in the bunker in lovely Hamburg, New York. It is late October 2024. The Rochester Americans have their AHL regular season underway. College hockey's up and running. The CHL's been going for a little bit, and the European leagues and the KHL have been going for a while as well. So it seems like a good time to take it around the horn and update everyone on what's been happening with the Buffalo Sabres prospects developing here in North America as well as abroad. But before we begin tonight, if you could please like this video, subscribe to the Sabres Prospects YouTube channel. If you're catching Prospect Avenue on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your audio versions of the podcast, if you could please leave a 5-star review. Now we're going to jump right in because we have a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to start shockingly, and I'm saying that facetiously, of course, over in Russia with an update on CSKA Moscow left winger Prokhor Poltapov. I say that facetiously, of course, because if you've been paying attention to previous episodes of Prospect Avenue, or if you follow the Sabres Prospects feed on X, you know that I'm a big fan of the playing style of Prokhor Poltapov and a big fan of his future outlook whenever he's ready to make the leap to North America and join the Sabres organization. And we'll get into that in a little bit as well here tonight. So with Poltapov, let's just kind of jump right in. 19 games played this season, 7 goals, 16 total points. For perspective, Poltapov had just 13 points all of last season. So he's showing some exponential statistical growth anyways, but there's definitely more to it with Poltapov this season. He has points in 11 of his 19 games this year. This is a guy who last year in a lower line role earned a point in just 12 of his 56 KHL appearances. So again, getting more ice time, greater responsibility, and he's doing good things with it in terms of even strength ice time amongst all the CSKA forwards. Poltapov currently ranks 6th, I'll say borderline 5th, because really the 5th leading even strength time on ice getter is only edging Poltapov out by a matter of seconds. So in terms of even strength, he's kind of getting that second line look. But really the story here with Poltapov this season is the trust that new head coach Ilya Vorobyev is showing with Poltapov. It really goes back to the preseason and very early in the regular season. He's clearly liked what Poltapov brings to the table. And frankly, his role has continued to grow. You know, the ice time that he's getting, by the way, there's really no power play time there. So he's picking up a lot of time at even strength. He's getting some PK looks still as they gotten deeper into the season. But really in the beginning of the season, Poltapov was playing more of a leading PK role, but as he's taken on more even strength responsibility, they've kind of moved him down into more of a secondary penalty killing role. But it's worth noting that 2 of Poltapov's 7 goals this season have come while shorthanded. But I think, you know, it's not just the results, it's really the playing style that Vorobyev sees in Poltapov that is allowing him to give him more of a deeper role on the team. You know, going back to the beginning of the season, even training camp, it was very clear that Vorobyev wants his team to play fast and aggressive and have a very good technical style. And Poltapov is one of those forwards this year, maybe one of the few that consistently anyways has exemplified that fast and aggressive style. He's a player that's, you know, very confident in his physicality. He's proven to be a very disruptive presence, both using his body, and he's got a very good stick defensively. But Poltapov is playing a very big role right now. I can't state that enough, on a team really that's been kind of hovering around the middle of the KHL's Western Conference standings all year. They're going to need Poltapov in that line with Maxim Sorkin and Vitaly Abramov to keep their production going while trying to get some of the other lines to continue to ramp up as well. team has a lot of, offensive firepower on there. So Poltapov getting it going is just kind of an added bonus coming into the season, really, from where they thought they'd be. But again, very disruptive, very physical, very driven, and very professional. This isn't a guy who's very aloof. He speaks very well after games, very businesslike, has a real good feel for where the team's at, how they're playing, kind of, acknowledges when they're not playing up to their potential. But I think overall you have a player that stylistically is very much built for the North American game. So Poltapov right now, he's 21 years old. He turns 22 on February 1st, and he's in the final year of his KHL deal. And, while he's maturing and he's showing this statistical growth offensively anyways, and taking clearly major developmental leaps, while there's a lot of hockey left to play, it just seems like any time I tweet about Poltapov or throw a clip up of some good things that he's doing, whether it's a goal highlight or a back check or, a big hit in open ice, you get those questions from Sabres fans that are very eager to get him over here. When's he coming over? When's he coming over? Do you think he comes over next year? And I'm not all the way convinced yet that Poltapov will elect to make the move. And here's why I think that. It would be great for the Sabres to get him in. I think they're going to want to get him in. I just don't know if Poltapov himself is going to feel that he's definitely ready to make the jump. 15 months ago, after CSKA won the Gagarin Cup, Poltapov was saying that he wasn't anywhere near ready for the NHL. He said the NHL, not North America, not the AHL, the NHL. And there was a quote in there where, he was saying, hey, let him wait. I'll come over when I'm ready. But the quote, I want to read it verbatim, is that for me, examples are the experience of Artemi Panarin and Kirill Kaprizov. Those guys left as ready-made masters and are now NHL stars. And it's kind of interesting that he cites those two players because those are players that came over. Kaprizov was 23. Panarin was 24. And while Poltapov will be 22 next fall, when you look at the paths that Kaprizov and Panarin took, Kaprizov had years of 42, 40, 51, and 62 points in the KHL before he came over to the NHL. Panarin was a little bit of a late bloomer. He had back-to-back seasons of 40 and 62 points, including a big playoff year in his final year in the KHL before signing with the Blackhawks. And you kind of wonder, those are pretty deep, resumes there in the KHL before making the leap. And again, Poltapov had 10 points 2 years ago, 13 points as a lower line player last year. He's finally breaking through this year. And maybe he wants to accomplish more. Maybe he signs, a 1 year or maybe even a 2-year extension with CSKA Moscow. Not really sure. He makes 12 million rubles this year. It's about 125, 130,000, depending on the day when you look at the currency exchange. He's due for a big raise if he does sign in CSKA next year. So it's going to be really interesting to see what he does, because you can certainly make the argument that some other Russian players have maybe come over too soon. I look at a guy like Klim Kostin. He was 18 when he came over. He's, I think, 24, 25 now. I think he's 25. He's in his 6th NHL year. He's on his 4th team. I look at Podkolzin, who was a high pick. He came over when he was 21. Vitaly Kravtsov came over pretty quickly after being a top 10 pick of the New York Rangers a few years back. He's already back in Russia playing. The list goes on and on. Alexander Volkov. I'll make an argument even maybe that Grigory Denisenko, who's been a pretty good AHL player, he came over and he was 21. And maybe he came over a little too soon. There's a yin and there's a yang. Nikita Kucherov played in the Q and made a seamless entry into North American hockey. Evgeny Malkin, there's both sides to the story here. But for Poltapov to cite Panarin and Kaprizov specifically makes me look at their career paths. It makes me wonder if even, if Poltapov has 55 or 60 points this year, and that's a really great year in the KHL, is he going to feel he's ready? Or is he going to want to stay back for another year? So definitely, look, a lot of hockey left to play. We'll see what happens there with Poltapov, but I just wanted to mention that because you want the player to come over when he feels he's ready. And again, I think he has his mind set on playing in the NHL. I don't think that he's going to be a guy that wants to play in the AHL. And I don't know. We'll see. Is it better for the Sabres if he waits also. Maybe it gives them an extra year for prospect spacing. And when you have a guy signing to his first contract, he'll be a little more ready to jump right in and play a big role with limited adjustment time. So we'll see how it goes, but I just kind of wanted to throw that out there again, only because Poltapov himself has cited those two examples. And I just wanted to look at their paths that they took and see what they accomplished in the KHL before making the leap. So something to think about there. Put it this way. I don't think that if Poltapov waits a year to come over, that's a bad thing. I don't think that, if he doesn't come over next year, that it's a sign that he doesn't want to play in the NHL. I think it's pretty clear that he does. He's just going to make that leap when he's ready. So we'll see. We have a lot of time to discuss it. It's not even November yet. And a lot of things can happen here. Maybe he tails off and maybe he doesn't have the season that we all think that he's capable of having based on his start. We'll see what happens there with Poltapov, but wanted to kind of get those thoughts out there. But really, really impressive player. Really, really impressive. Love watching him play. Does a little bit of everything, man. Physical, forecheck, good hands, good offensive mind for the game. Coach loves them, and for good reason. So going to stay in Europe here, keep this train rolling, because like I said, we have a lot we want to get to. We're already over 10 minutes in. And want to do a quick update on TPS centerman Viljami Marjala, who's off to a good start with TPS Turku. You may recall last season, Marjala, TPS's leading point getter, won Liga's Rookie of the Year. He's producing points at a good clip here, getting a lot of ice time, over 20 minutes a game. And he's jumped right in after missing 4 weeks to start the season with a kind of a hand wrist injury. So looks completely healthy here in his return to action. And he's been back about a month, jumped right in, had a career high 4-point game against Asapori back on September 27th. And getting some shots on goal as well. He's got 36 shot attempts, 31 of them have hit the net. If there's one thing that Marjala needs to work on here early in the season, it is his faceoffs. He's winning draws. It's just a 43.7% success rate. So there's something there that he can work on. But 9 games in, 3 goals, 11 total points. 5 of those points have come on the PP, 2 goals and 3 assists on the PP. So the Sabres do regular check-ins with Marjala. I want to say weekly or at least every 2 weeks, just to review his recent games, talk about life, see what's happening over there, how he's feeling. They kind of give him things to think about, things to work on. They definitely want to see him add a little more power to his game, make some more power moves to get to the front of the net. You started to see that take shape last year. And it's just a matter of time where I think they start to figure out if they want to get him under contract or not. So this is the final season that the Sabres own Marjala signing rights. I think Marjala is a player that definitely wants to have a North American future. You got to remember, this is a player that came over and played a couple seasons under Patrick Waugh in the QMJHL before going back to the TPS system to continue his development. But overall, really great playmaker, one of the best playmakers in the entire Finnish top league there. Really good with the puck. We saw him start to get to the net more often, to that net front area, like I mentioned last season. He's getting there again this year. The production's coming. And this is a guy I think that, I look at it 2 ways. He'd be really good secondary layer of offensive prospects that you could add to the mix next year in Rochester in a very crowded pipeline. Or maybe he's a guy also that could be a sweetener at the trade deadline if you're not going to sign him. I think there's teams that would take a look at him. He's a big kid. He's got long arms, good reach, getting a little bit better defensively. Maybe he's a guy that is a sweetener as you start to clear out the prospect ranks if you make some moves at the deadline. But overall, I do like him as a player that the Sabres could bring in. Like I said, just a secondary layer of offensive skill and playmaking that they could add to the mix and see what happens with his development. But needless to say, missed 4 weeks. He's already got 11 points in his first 9 games. You see in some of the highlights, if you're watching this on YouTube, that he has that golden helmet. He had it for most of the second half of last season as TPS's leading point getter. And it's just a matter of time, I think, before Marjala gets that golden helmet back on his head again this season. So we'll see if the Sabres start talking contract with him. To my knowledge, they haven't done that yet. It's been mostly the player development staff having weekly check-ins with him to continue developing his game that way via Zoom or in-person visits. So we're going to keep it going with the Finnish flavor here and just want to give a quick update on goaltending prospect Topias Leinonen, a second-round pick from the Sabres, the first goaltender taken in his draft class. And it's no question been a little bit of a bumpy ride with injuries, but also the system there in Uvescula where the coaches weren't really ready to lean on a young goaltender, even if he was healthy. And the injury certainly didn't help, kept him off the ice for way too long, didn't allow Leinonen to get in a groove really in his 2 post-draft seasons. So everything was reset for Leinonen coming into this season. The Sabres and his agent, they all met, they sat down, and they wanted to figure out what situation they could get Leinonen in to develop. And the massive 6'5" netminder landed in a good situation with Mora over in Hockey Allsvenskan in the second division. And he's off to what I would say is a pretty decent start with Mora. He's off to a 4-3 start, 2.45 goals against average, a .903 save percentage. He's picked up 1 shutout this far. My benchmarks for him this year of what I wanted to see was definitely a save percentage over 90%. He's already there. Got to keep it there, of course. And that goals against average, you want to see it, definitely kept under 3. Be even better if it was kept under 2.75. So right now he's at a 2.45 goals against. So he's kind of hitting the marks early. And the whole mission for this season was to get him reps, getting some regular playing time, get him to see a lot of shots. And he's in a really good situation. And the net is going to be Leinonen's for the foreseeable future here, at least for the next little bit. His goaltending partner coming into the season suffered an injury. He's going to be down for the count for multiple weeks. So it's Leinonen's net. He's going to keep playing here. And let's just see what he does with it. See if he can take his developmental trajectory in an even greater direction than he started off. He's actually, I think, started better than I thought he would have. I thought it was going to take him a little bit of a time to get into a groove in his new surroundings, new system, new team. But at the end of the day, goaltending's goaltending. It's what he's done best, and he's off to a good start. The one thing with Leinonen that I think I want to see him improve on is definitely his glove hand. I've seen him get beaten a few times this season, especially from shots from the left side of the ice on that glove hand. I think it's definitely becoming part of the pre-scout with Leinonen. You're seeing teams target it early this season. And I go back to when UPL was early in his post-draft development, back when he was playing in Finland. And he had some issues with his glove hand back then too. He was stabbing at pucks. He was freezing on shots that were on his glove side, just very inconsistent with his glove. And I think about a lot of the tracking work that Seamus Kotick did with UPL to correct that glove hand, tracking that puck all the way off the shooter's stick into his body, or in this case, into the glove. And I think whatever Seamus did with UPL certainly applies here for the developmental training with Leinonen this year and next. So we'll see what Leinonen does with this opportunity here. I don't think he's going to get many nights off in the next, at least probably 4 to 6 weeks, perhaps even longer. I think it's a lower body injury to his goaltending partner there in Mora, and those are tricky. I mean, Leinonen just had, heel fractures, stress fractures down in his lower leg as well. And we saw what that did to his development track. So more to come with Leinonen, but, I think at the end of the day, look, his development is not done. I've seen a lot of negative commentary with Topias Leinonen, and I'm sure largely due to his draft position and his stats. But really, when you take into consideration the situation that he was in, the slate was clean coming into this season, and he's performing pretty well. Mora was expected to be right in the middle of the standings. That's where they are. He's getting goal support, but he's also starting to see more shots. He's had a couple games where he's seen in the high 20s and low 30s, so he's getting action. And, he's not just sitting there seeing 4 or 5 shots a period. They're putting him to work, and he's coming away pretty clean. So with Scott Ratzlaff just getting his 3-year contract and locking him up for future organizational depth, we'll see if Leinonen can have a good season. Like I said, keep developing, moving in a good direction. And maybe Leinonen's a guy that the Sabres elect to sign. Again, he's massive, 6'5". He's getting a little cleaner with his movements, still a little scrambly from time to time, but I think if he tightens up his footwork, I've mentioned that before, and he starts taking corrective action with his glove, activating his hands for every shot, seeing it all the way into his glove, that'll be some keys for him, I think, to hitting the next level developmentally. So more to come on Leinonen. We'll be tracking his situation all season long, but definitely wanted to get the update there. All right, we're going to bring it back over to this side of the pond here in North America and talk a little bit about the Rochester Americans. They're 5 games into their season, And I know everyone wants to talk about Noah Ostland or Isak Rosane, Konsta Helenius, Anton Wahlberg, Victor Neuchev, and we will. But I think the player that I really want to talk about tonight is the checking centerman, Tyson Kozak, because he's a guy who was really impressive in the Prospect Challenge. And if he could stay healthy, I think he's set up to have a really big year here with the Americans. And he's been doing some good things early this season. So Kozak, smart, greasy player, really good shutdown guy. If you go back to when he was with the Portland Winterhawks in the Western Hockey League, he was producing really good offensive numbers. But Kozak was the guy that the Winterhawks coaching staff was throwing over the boards to defend against the opposition's top line. So he settled in his first 2 seasons as kind of a lower line, checking line centerman. And, good forechecker, really excellent back checker, really good routes. I love the way that he backtracks and seals off the forward, separates his man from the puck. Really good penalty killer. But through 5 games this season, rather, we're seeing Kozak get off and show a goal scoring knack. He's got 3 goals this season to lead the Amerks, all 3 goals right at the edge of the blue paint. And so, look, this is a player now. He came in as a 19-year-old. Mike Pekka was there on the Amerks bench. No better player from a defensive forward perspective to start guiding his development and, push him off the dock into his pro career. He's 100 games into his AHL career now. Just needs to stay healthy. The cool thing that we saw this week with Kozak was, like I said, he started the first 4 games on the 4th line, and he was rewarded for his effectiveness at 5-on-5. And they put him up on the top line with Konsta Helenius and Isak Rosane. And he goes out and he scores a goal, made some really key defensive plays in all 3 zones in that game, an incredible back check to knock James Malatesta off the puck on a partial breakaway to save a goal scoring opportunity against. Earned the first star in that game. So really good to see. Kozak's never going to be on the PP. He'll be out there on the PK. But if he's really effective at 5-on-5, they're going to show the confidence in him and keep him up in the lineup if possible with some skilled, capable playmakers that can get him the puck as long as he's scoring. And he's doing just that early in the season. I really like the fact that, Kozak's a guy, he knows who he is as a player. You get an honest effort from him every night, end boards to end boards. And when you look at what Kevin Adams did this offseason, addressing the Sabres checking line section of their roster, goes out and trades for Beck Malenstein, signs Nicolas Aube-Kubel and Sam Lafferty to free agent contracts, putting a focus on those checkers and those guys that can get in on the forecheck and be hard to play against. I think it just makes Kozak's development worth tracking this season. So again, Pekka, was there in his first year. That really helped his development get going. And now he's down there with Vinny Prospol. He's in a really good situation. Coaches that are going to be very beneficial to his long-term development. And he's a guy, if he keeps moving forward, like some of these others, he's going to be right in the mix for an NHL roster spot a few years down the line. So really good to see, winning hockey player. You need players like Kozak to weave into the fabric of your team. I just think it's really important. You're never going to have a roster of 12 forwards that are just all danglers and all-stars. You need those gritty, grimy guys. Sabres sorely lacked those speedy players in previous seasons. They addressed it at the top club roster, and now they have a pretty good-looking player down there in Rochester with Kozak, so more to come on him. As far as some of the other Amerks, some of those names that I think people want to hear about, we'll start with Victor Neuchev. He's got a goal and 4 assists to lead all Amerks point getters in the early goings here through 5 games. What I noticed about Neuchev thus far, first of all, he's getting to the net. If you look at his season last year, right around December, he started to really take off. He started to get really more comfortable, I think, with the culture, the system, the North American game. They rewarded him about mid-December. It was right when Kulik went to the World Juniors that they put him up with Brandon Byro, and it put him in better position to leverage his skills, which is finding soft spots to get open around the net and in the lower slot area and to get his really good shot off. And this year he's doing more of that. But I noticed with his assists, he has 4 assists this year. They're all primaries. So 4 primary assists, it puts him on this incredible pace where he could finish with 57 primary assists this year. I don't think he's going to have 57 primary assists this year, but I think it's worth noting just in terms of year-over-year development in his game. You see with the eye test that he's just a very effective player. He played most of his season to date on a line with Helenius and Rosane. When they moved Kozak up with Helenius and Rosane, they put Neuchev down with Mason Jobst and Brett Murray, again, 2 veteran guys that were going to ensure that Neuchev was seeing a lot of ice. And of course, guys that can get him the puck to leverage his skill set. But in terms of those primary assists, he's got 4 already, and he had just 9 primary assists all of last season. So again, just wanted to illustrate statistically the growth that we're seeing in Neuchev's game very early on. So the rookies are also, when I'm looking at Oslin as a rookie, Anton Wahlberg, Vsevolod Komarov, those guys are contributing as well. They're not, tearing it up statistically, but I thought it was interesting to note that Vsevolod Komarov early on does have 17 shots on goal to lead the Amerks with Mason Jobst. He's also leading the entire AHL rookie class with those 17 shots on goal. Konsta Helenius is right there amongst AHL rookies. He is tied for 3rd amongst rookies with 16 shots on goal. Noah Oslin is 5th with 15 shots on goal, and Anton Wahlberg is a little bit deeper down the list. He sits 15th among AHL rookies with 10 shots on goal. But it's good to see. These guys are contributing early. They're all very young. It's good to see that young core get in there and start feeling good about their games. They're going to be down there playing together for a while. So you want to see them having success very early on and should lead to good things down the road. Helenius, Oslin, and Wahlberg all have goals this season off those higher shot on goal numbers. And Vsevolod Komarov is still looking for his first goal of the season. Oslin has been playing center on a line pretty steadily with Wahlberg and Lucas Rusek, at least for the last 4 games. So getting some familiarity, we see often in the AHL, a lot of line juggling. Good to see some steadiness there with Oslin and Wahlberg as young players, getting some time there the last 4 games with Rusek, who we're going to consider an AHL veteran at this point. All right, we're getting up there over 26, 27 minutes in, and there's a few other players I want to talk about, so we better get to them real quick before calling it a night here on Prospect Avenue. So we're going to transfer over to the NCAA ranks real quick, where we're going to start with Jake Rashard, who's off to a nice start there with the UConn Huskies in Storrs, Connecticut. He's co-leading UConn very early this season with 4 goals and 6 points for their first 5 games. The national leaders all have 5 goals. So Rashard is right there knocking on the door in terms of goal production early in the season. What we're seeing thus far from Rashard is definitely his overall skating game has improved. Looks better in open ice, a little more powerful there with his stride, but really his short area skating looks improved well. Has a little more jump with his 2-3 step acceleration. He's getting away from the front of the net to retrieve pucks low in the zone and kicking them high and then getting back to the front of the net. But he's continued to be a load there. Hard to handle when he's in front of the net. Big wide body, 6'1", 190 pounds, really good at tipping pucks. We've seen him score a goal already on a deflection this year, but he's looking pretty good. So right now, I'm looking at Rashard as a guy. He's averaging nearly 3 shots on goal per game through his first 5. If he can get to 100 shots on goal this season, I think that's a good number for him. Right now, he's kind of trending, based on his early season rate stats to come close to that number. That would be a good benchmark for him to hit. If he gets 100 shots on goal and he's got a pretty good shooting percentage, he's going to put up a pretty good number. So those are some of the things we'll be looking for from Rashard this year. Really good chemistry, by the way, playing with Buffalo product Joey Muldowney. Muldowney did a few seasons in the USHL and then earned himself as an NHL draft pick by the San Jose Sharks. So he's there playing with Rashard this year. Fellow sophomores doing good things, showing some good chemistry together early on this season. Going to keep it in the NCAA. Want to do a quick update here on Minnesota Gophers freshman Brody Zemer, a player that I loved watching last year in his draft year at the National Team Development Program. He's pretty much doing what we thought he'd be capable of doing this year, and that's making a seamless transition to the collegiate ranks. So he's got 2 goals thus far, playing on a middle six line there in the forward ranks for Bob Motzko's squad, playing on a line with Chicago Blackhawks prospect Oliver Moore. We saw Zemer last week on Friday and Saturday score the first goal in those two games as the Gophers swept in-state rival Minnesota Duluth. But his minutes have been pretty guarded thus far. He's in that 13 to 14 minute per night range. I think you'll see him earn more ice time as the season plays out. But really liking what we're seeing. Really tough below the dots. Really good. He gets leverage winning his board battles, likes to take the puck hard to the net, likes to find space when he doesn't have the puck in front of the net. Scored his second goal by going to the front of the net and taking a feed from Moore. But it's that chemistry with Oliver Moore that I want to keep an eye on this year. We saw Moore and Zemer play together at the World Junior Summer Showcase in late July, early August. Now here they are in the early goings playing together on an even strength line for the Gophers. And maybe that's a duo that continues playing together in the World Junior Championship later this winter up in Ottawa. So that's a storyline we'll be watching, but they look really good together. Liking how Zemer looks in all three zones, kind of driving the play despite the limited minutes this far. But like I said, I think we'll see him break off a little bit more responsibility as the season progresses. And last but not least, want to give a quick shout out to Stiven Sardarian. Stiven, I should say. He's got a brother actually named Stiven. Kind of funny. So he's Stiven. His brother's Steven. I'm sure at some point we'll Americanize Stiven to Steven, but needless to say, he's still Stiven Sardarian. And he transferred to Michigan Tech this season after doing 2 seasons of duty with the University of New Hampshire in Hockey East. And he's off to a good start there with Michigan Tech. Just 2 games in. He's got a goal and an assist. But I think it's important to note this is a player transferred in. He's adjusting to a new school, new coaches, new teammates, new program, but he's also adjusting to a new position. They've got Sardarian playing center this year, and it's a really good application of his skill set. He is an excellent passer, dare I say an elite passer. Looks really good when he's on the power play, but he's made some really sharp, heady plays with the puck in his 2 games with Michigan Tech thus far this season. And the word is on campus that there's a list of guys that are really eager to get out there and play with Sardarian this season. So it's a sign that his teammates like him. It's a sign that they see that he's a really good player that could do good things for their own games if they can get out there and have him dishing pucks. But overall, liking what we're seeing thus far with Sardarian. He's got big body, super skilled, great puck skills. Of note, I think it's important. He's leading the team thus far with 7 shots on goal, and he's 3rd amongst Michigan Tech forwards with an 18-13 average time on ice through those 2 games. So he's getting good even strength minutes. He's getting some PP time. He's right up there amongst the time on ice leaders amongst Michigan Tech forwards, and that's a good sign. We like seeing that. Some other quick notes real quick before we end it here tonight on Prospect Avenue. Just want to do a quick speed round here. Gavin McCarthy, sophomore defenseman for Boston University. He's been playing on the Terriers' top defensive pair with Cole Hudson, a Washington Capitals prospect. Cole Hudson, I think for certain, will be one of those guys driving the power play for Team USA this year at the World Junior Championship. That duo, they're averaging over 23 minutes per night this year for the Terriers, with McCarthy coming in at a whopping 23-39. That's a very good number for a sophomore defenseman playing in Hockey East. Gavin McCarthy was at that World Junior Summer Showcase as well. I think right now he's on the outside looking in. He's maybe on that bubble in that 7-8 hole there in terms of a crowded Team USA blue line. So we'll see if he can keep making strides this year and have a really good fall and really pop back on that radar. I think he'll get invited to their selection camp. It remains to be seen if he can actually get a spot in Team USA's top 7. I think he's right there on the cusp at the bottom end of that chart. Sophomores Maxim Strbak and Patrick Geary have teamed up to form a very physical top defensive pair for the number 4 Michigan State Spartans this year. I like Strbak, obviously, liked him in his draft year, thought that he'd be a good fit for the Sabres, and they did indeed take him. But Strbak right now is leading the Spartans with an average time on ice of 20 minutes and 58 seconds for Strbak, getting a lot of PK time, managing some very big, even strength minutes as well for the Spartans. So that's good to see as he takes off here in his second collegiate hockey season And last but not least, in terms of other Sabres prospects that are playing for top 20 ranked teams collegiately, Matteo Costantini had a really good year last year with Western Michigan after transferring in from the University of North Dakota. Costantini has really cemented himself as the number one centerman this season for the number 14 Western Michigan Broncos. That'll do it. Wanted to keep it short. I didn't succeed. Hopefully you stayed with me the whole way through. We're going to cut it short there. If you could please, on your way out, like this video. And again, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Sabres Prospects YouTube channel and hit the notification bell, by the way. Matthew Fairburn and I, we go live with the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show, talking Sabres at the top club level. And we do that live. So if you hit the notification bell, you get a little pop-up on your phone or on your computer, letting you know we're live, and you can hop into the live chat. You can comment in there. Maybe we'll pop some comments up on the screen, answer your questions. The chat is a big part of that show. It is the show, frankly. And the more the merrier when it comes to the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show. So that's it. Thanks for everyone for stopping in here this week on Prospect Avenue. I'm Chris Baker, and we'll see you again next time.